Okay. All right. Today is Wednesday, the 15th of February, 2023. The time is 7:30. Okay, we're doing CMY2602 Principles of Crime Prevention, Reduction, and Control. Today we're going to be doing study unit 8. Okay, you can see the contents there. Introduction concept, motives of vandalism types, vandal causes and explanation, summary, self-assessment questions. It is on page 69. So we're moving. Okay, the learning outcomes of this study unit. After completion of this learning unit, you should be able to define and be conversant with the concept of vandalism. Appreciate the motives of vandalism. Recognize the various types of vandalism. Understand and provide an explanation of vandalism. Assessment criteria. After completion of this learning unit, you should be able to answer diverse multiple choice and paragraph type questions in order to demonstrate your understanding, knowledge of, and insight into the study material. Introduction. Vandalism is the intentional defacement or destruction of property. It is a persistent problem, and there is no model or single definition. The word vandalism has been used as a label for a broad range of negative behavior, including both accident or trivial incidents and actual criminal activities. Common acts of vandalism include graffiti, breaking windows, dumping trash from the receptacles, such as wheelie bins and dumpsters, and destroying of rocks or branches on the public roads. Numerous attempts have been made to categorize actions to explain why individuals damage and destroy property. The research findings show that vandalism is not a single stereotypical type of crime. Rather, it can be categorized into various types. Sorry about that. There is a dire need for more South Africans related research in this field, as most available sources are considerably dated and are typically based on American society. In this learning unit, you will be provided with a broad overview of a very complex phenomenon. We will start with the definition of the term vandalism. This will be followed by a list of motives of vandalism, the types of vandalism, the characteristics of vandals, and the causes of and an explanation of vandalism. Key concept. Vandalism, according to Conklin, 2013, page 61, is a willful or malicious destruction, injury, disfigurement, or defacement of property without the consent of the owner. Breaking windows in an abandoned building is an act of vandalism that has fractional social significance, but vandalizing an important painting in an art museum can ruin property of great economical and cultural value. Once again, Kemp, Walker, Palmer, Bakwa, Gives, Leslie, Steinbeck, 2012, page 400, refer to vandalism as a malicious injury to property and define the term as follows. A person commits malicious injury to property if he or she unlawfully and intentionally damages movable or immovable property belonging to another, or his or her own insured property, intending to claim the value of the property from the insurer. By the way of example, X commits malicious damage to property where he or she unlawfully and intentionally damaged property of Y or property belonging to him or herself in which Y has a substantial interest. Movable or immovable corporeal material property can be damaged. Usually the damaged property will belong to a person other than the one inflicting the damage, but need not necessarily be the case. Furthermore, the crime cannot be committed in respect of property which belongs to nobody. Motives for vandalism. According to Buick, 2014, page 148, 149, theoretically overviews reveals that in general vandalism is inspired by negative feelings such as revenge, anger, boredom, and frustration. However, it is also motivated by playfulness, curiosity, pleasure. Elements such as peer group pressure and creativity are also considered. It appears that 80 to 90% of the acts of vandalism are carried out by males, and that alcohol is a common variable in vandalistic activities. An act of vandalism is a complex form of behavior which can be motivated by a number of factors. All right. Types of vandalism. Vandalism can be categorized as follows. CGL 2013, page 559. Cyber vandalism. Malicious attack aimed at disrupting, defacing, and destroying technology. Accusative vandalism. Damage is inflicted in order to acquire money or property An example of this type of vandalism is looting, petty theft, and damage to automatic teller machines. Tactical vandalism. Damage is inflicted as a conscious tactic to achieve another end. For example, to divert attention away from a particular area so that a crime can be committed unhindered elsewhere. Ideological vandalism, carried out to further an explicit ideological cause or deliver a message. Slogans on buildings are an example of this type of vandalism. Vindictive vandalism. Damage is inflicted to get revenge. For example, breaking school windows because of perceived unfairness by teachers. Play vandalism. Damage is inflicted incidentally or deliberately as part of the game or competition, such as seeing who can break the most windows. Malicious vandalism. Damage is inflicted as an expression of rage of frustration, scratching the paintwork of expensive cars is an example of this type of vandalism. Innoxious vandalism. Damage is caused to property that is regarded by youth as being unimportant or having no value. Slashing railway carriage or bus seat is an example of this type of vandalism. Although the motivation to tactical, ideological, and vindictive vandalism is fairly obvious, the motivation to play malicious, innoxious vandalism is less apparent, and this type of vandalism is quite widespread. Okay, we go to activity 8.1 based on the typology. Try to identify acts of vandalism in your community or immediate environment. How common is vandalism in your neighborhood? Make use of my UNISA to interact with other students studying this module to initiate and contribute to a discussion in this regard. Feedback is no feedback given by the study guide. So we're going to move to the vandal. Research findings indicate that vandals are usually boys between the age of 11 and 15 who seldom act on their own, although girls also commit acts of vandalism. Boys tend to be more aggressive. According to Sanders in Theron 1991, page 48, acts of vandalism by boys are more often reported than acts of vandalism by girls. Excuse me. The tendency of commit acts of vandalism decreases with age, and only a small percentage of youths older than 17 years of age continue to vandalize. Adults, especially those involved in unrest, also commit acts of vandalism by littering the environment with the contents of rubbish bins, damaging vehicles and buildings, and starting fires. For example, Often these adults comprise students at universities who shun peacefully, pro- peaceful protest and dialogue in favor of behaving like selfish hooligans as they get caught up in a group of mentality and protective anonymity of the assembly page. Acts of vandalism might appear justifiable to the perpetrators, but such inconsiderate actions seriously impact on other students attempting to focus on their studies and law abiding citizens alike. Acts of vandalism can incur great financial cost and should therefore be considered as a serious problem. Alright, let's move to the causes and explanation and an explanation for vandalism. Vandalism is a complex phenomenon that cannot be explained by a single theory. Although various rationales of vandalism can be offered, we will briefly explain only some of the most prominent views. Intra Intrapsych explanation. According to Levi Leboye in Theron 1991, page 49, it is very difficult to identify the direct cause when explaining vandalism because of the intrapsych of subconscious factors which are often involved through acts of vandalism. Youth convey their disaffection with the world that adults have presented them with, search for adventure, excitement, and identity. The adolescent phase of human development is characterized by a surge of adventure and excitement, the need to discover something new, and the need to form an own identity. Nelson in Theron, 1991, page 49, is convinced that vandalism is not committed with an exclusive aim of causing damage, but rather they derive excitement and pleasure. Adolescents also like to play pranks on people and may cause a great deal of damage to property. Some adolescents try to acquire their own identity in negative ways, for example, using graffiti. Youngsters can leave their own unique mark and reveal their own identity. Adolescents also test society's reaction to their behavior once again to their behavior in this way. When young people are bored or unemployed, they tend to commit acts of vandalism to relieve their tedium. Influence of the peer group. Vandalism usually occurs within a group context. Haskell and Jabolski in Theron 1991, page 49, point out the relationship between vandalism and the youth's involvement in the peer group. Accordingly, vandalism should be seen as a form of social behavior. By committing acts of vandalism, the group's members appear cool and are tied more closely together. The individual member obtains status within the group as a result of the interaction within the peer group. The group's norms and values become more important than those of society. In addition, membership of the peer group ensures immunity to individuals' feelings of guilty. However, it is important to note that the peer group in this sense is not the same as gang, as it is more loosely constructed and there is no clear hierarchy. Members of the group are at liberty to join the group, stay or leave according to their own needs. Neighborhood characteristics. Public property is targeted more often by vandals than private property. It is thought that public property may have some negative symbolic meaning for the vandal, which may contribute to the building or other object being damaged. In the same vein, terrorists, for example, often target government buildings. The malfunctioning of the certain public property, such as public telephone or public meter, may cause such frustration that the object is attacked and damaged. The impersonal nature of public buildings can also contribute to vandalism. Very few people feel that they have any share in such buildings and are thus unconcerned about their appearance. In contrast, people who find pleasure in their environment can identify with it and respect it. The general rule of thumb is that people will not vandalize something they respect. Neighborhood characteristics are also determined by, among others, the number of people per household, the number of single-parent families, unemployment, high mobility of the inhabitants, a negative attitude towards school, a preference for outdoor activities, problems within the family or school, and the abuse of alcohol. South African studies have shown that schools that are vandalized are generally situated in the lower socio-economic areas. Alienation from the school system and the limited employment opportunities create a feeling of anomie in young people, which forms a fertile ground for vandalism. Summary. In this learning unit, we presented a broad overview of a complex phenomenon of vandalism. We first looked at the terms vandalism and malicious damage to property, and then mentioned the different motives of vandalism. We then outlined the various types of vandalism, the kind of offender who commits acts of vandalism was also briefly alluded to, and causes of vandalism were discussed in somewhat broader detail. Self-assessment outcomes. Self-assessment questions. Which of the following statements can be regarded as the most accurate regarding the explanation of vandalism. Rational choice theory adequate and explain vandalism. Routine activity theory adequately explains vandalism. Intra psychic theory adequately explain vandalism. No theory on its own adequately explain vandalism. I think we'll see. The identify the correct statement with regards to the causes of vandalism. The impersonal nature of the public buildings can also contribute to vandalism. The personal nature of public buildings. The impersonal nature. The personal nature. Impersonal nature. Which one of the following statements is most accurate with regards to when we are done with this study unit now, we can just stop the recording. Thank you.